Not overprotective, just committed. No, we weren't over the top. There were no extreme rules. We were simply thoughtful, reasonable parents trying to make the right decisions at every step. But behind Ron Howard's calm, all-American image lies a story few know. In 1973, during the filming of American Graffiti, co-stars Harrison Ford and Paul Le Mat targeted him. They threw bottles at his car and locked him in a trailer, teasing him in what Ron later called Opie shaming. That was just the beginning. For decades, Howard stayed silent about the darker side of Hollywood. But now he's opening up about near-fatal accidents on his sets, lawsuits that cost millions, and family challenges that nearly tore his marriage apart. One of America's most beloved directors is finally telling the truth about his long and complicated journey, a humble beginning. Ron Howard was born on March 1st, 1954, in Duncan, Oklahoma. His father, Rance Howard, was an aspiring actor and writer. His mother, Jean, was also an actress. Money was tight and life was uncertain. In 1958, when Ron was just 4 years old, his family packed up and moved to Hollywood. It was a gamble, fueled by dreams of better opportunities in the entertainment industry. They settled in a small home in Burbank, California, near a major film studio. As a result, young Ron was surrounded by the film world from an early age, watching cameras roll and actors perform instead of attending a traditional preschool. That same year, Ron accidentally began his acting career. On January 1st, 1956, at just 18 months old, he appeared in the film Frontier Woman, simply because his father needed a baby for a short scene. It was unplanned, but it launched a career that would change all their lives. Still, the Howards struggled. Rance had recently left the Air Force and they were barely making ends meet. By 1957, the family was considering returning to Oklahoma to farm, but they stayed, determined to let Ron enjoy childhood and avoid the trap many child stars fall into. They refused to let him work full-time until he turned 5. Acting, struggle, and sacrifice. The decision to delay his full-time career nearly broke them. They turned down offers in 1957 and 1958, even when they couldn't afford rent. They pawned personal belongings just to survive. In 1959, when Ron finally turned 5, opportunities returned. He appeared in The Journey, and for the first time, his name appeared in the credits. But not all experiences were positive. On that set, crew members teased him for his red hair and freckles, calling him cruel names like freckle-faced freak. His father nearly lost his job defending him. That year, Ron's younger brother, Clint, was born. The family remained in debt, about $5,000 in today's money, but stayed committed to protecting Ron's well-being. He stayed in public school and was allowed to live as normal a life as possible, even as acting jobs increased. Stardom as Opie Taylor. Then, in 1960, everything changed. Ron landed the role of Opie Taylor in The Andy Griffith Show at just 6 years old. More than 300 boys auditioned, but Ron's natural charm stood out. The show premiered on October 3, 1960, and quickly became a cultural phenomenon. Ron appeared in 243 of the show's 249 episodes, earning $300 per episode at first, rising to $1,000 by the series' end in 1968. But the role came with pressure. He had to memorize lines, meet tight schedules, and perform with precision, all without a live audience. It was demanding, but Ron adapted quickly. Behind the scenes, he developed a deep bond with Andy Griffith, who became a mentor. Andy taught him about acting and storytelling, often talking to him between takes. Their friendship lasted for decades. In 1997, Andy even visited Ron on a movie set. After Andy's passing in 2012, the Howard family discovered they were distant cousins, a surprising and meaningful discovery. But not all memories were warm. Andy sometimes struggled with alcohol and anger. Ron witnessed heated arguments on set and occasionally saw his mentor lose control. Yet Andy remained supportive and protective, especially during emotional scenes. A close call on set. In 1962, during the filming of a fishing scene on a lake, 8-year-old Ron nearly drowned. A boat tipped, throwing him into the water. Andy Griffith immediately jumped in and saved him. Producers kept the incident quiet to protect the show's image, but the experience left a deep impression on Ron. Later, as a director, he would always prioritize safety on his sets. Life after Opie. When the Andy Griffith Show ended in 1968, Ron was 14 and suddenly found himself typecast. He went to more than 50 auditions in 1968 and 1969, all ending in rejection. Directors only saw him as Opie. Frustrated and disheartened, he told his parents he wanted to quit acting. He took small roles for low pay, including Gentle Ben, in 1969 for $500 per episode, far less than he had been making. Frustrated and disheartened, he told his parents he wanted to quit acting. He took small roles for low pay, including Gentle Ben in 1969 for $500 per episode, far less than he had been making. He lost out on lead roles, including The Wild Country in 1970. The setbacks took a toll. He developed anxiety, which he kept hidden from those around him. At the same time, he played high school basketball, averaging 12 points per game, trying to live a normal teenage life. American Graffiti and behind-the-scenes pain. In 1973, at age 19, Ron was cast in American Graffiti, directed by George Lucas. While the film appeared exciting on the surface, the experience was painful. Co-stars Harrison Ford and Paul Le Mat bullied him. They threw bottles near his car, locked him in a trailer, spiked his drinks, and mocked him by yelling, "Dance, Opie, dance!" Ron later said it was his only experience of being Opie-shamed. He earned $10,000 for the role. Years later, Ford apologized, but the emotional scars remained. Young love and hard choices. Ron met Cheryl Alley in high school. Their first date was November 1st, 1970, and by December, rumors swirled that Cheryl was pregnant. They were just 16. Ron publicly denied it in January 1971. The media frenzy cost him a $2,000 guest role, and Cheryl was deeply affected. Despite the stress, they stayed together. Ron proposed 3 times before Cheryl accepted. In October 1974, they married on June 7, 1975. Today, they've been married for 50 years. Ron often calls her his good luck charm, financial struggles, and physical pain. After the Andy Griffith Show, money was still tight. In early 1971, Ron delivered newspapers before school, earning $150 a month. He needed the money to take Cheryl out. Then, on April 5, 1971, he was rear-ended by a truck on his way to an audition. He suffered whiplash and had no insurance. Medical bills reached $3,000. He even sold his bike for $200 to pay them. The injury affected him for years, altering how he moved in future acting and directing roles. Despite American Graffiti's enormous success, earning $115 million on a $777,000 budget, Ron received no share of the profits. He later asked George Lucas for just 1%, worth over $1 million. Lucas declined, straining their friendship. The birth of Richie Cunningham. To regain stability, Ron joined the cast of Happy Days in 1974, earning $1,000 per episode. He played Richie Cunningham, and the show became an immediate success. The first episode aired on January 15, 1974, attracting 11 million viewers. By 1976, the focus shifted from Richie to Fonzie, played by Henry Winkler, whose popularity skyrocketed. The show reached 31 million weekly viewers and became the #1 program in the country. Around that time, ABC executives began plotting new directions for the series. Tension behind the success of Happy Days. In 1976, executives at ABC considered renaming Happy Days to Fonzie's Happy Days, hoping to capitalize on the surging popularity of the character Fonzie. That year alone, merchandise tied to the character earned over $1 million. But Ron Howard, who had led the show from the start, was not on board. He felt sidelined. In November 1976, Howard issued an ultimatum to the producers. If they changed the show's name, he would leave, despite having a contract that ran through 1980. The situation escalated when the story leaked to Variety on December 5, 1976. Public reaction was swift and intense. ABC received over 10,000 letters from viewers who didn't want the show's heart to be lost. Facing backlash, the network abandoned the renaming plan, and Howard agreed to stay. However, something fundamental had shifted. By 1977, Happy Days was generating over $50 million a year, but the pay disparity was striking. Howard earned $25,000 per episode, while Henry Winkler, who played Fonzie, was making $75,000. Howard later reflected in a 1980 interview that this moment was pivotal. It pushed him to seriously consider directing as a long-term career. Tensions within the cast. During the show's peak in 1976 to 77, internal disputes began surfacing. Cast members clashed over screen time and salaries. Anson Williams, who played Potsy, was earning just $12,000 per episode, half of what Howard made, and was increasingly resentful. On November 16, 1976, while filming the episode The Muckrakers, Williams reportedly walked off set after a scene was rewritten to favor Howard. Some cast and crew saw it as favoritism. Rumors circulated about a physical altercation, though it was never confirmed. ABC worked hard to keep any negative publicity quiet to protect their highly profitable series. Years later, in 2012, tensions resurfaced when Williams and other cast members filed a $10 million lawsuit against CBS over unpaid merchandise royalties. Just in 1976 alone, over 5 million Happy Days lunchboxes were sold. The case was settled on April 4, 2012, with each plaintiff receiving $65,000. Williams later admitted he never earned more than $100,000 a year, while the network made millions. Howard did not join the lawsuit. However, in a 2025 interview, he admitted that this period strained friendships and created lasting emotional divides. A new direction, filmmaking. While still acting on Happy Days, Howard quietly began pursuing directing. In early 1975, during a short production break, he filmed a 10-minute short titled Deed of Daring Do, using only $2,000. Even Henry Winkler made a cameo appearance. The film premiered at a small festival on June 15, 1975. Although unproven, rumors swirled that someone accused Howard of plagiarism. Copyright laws were vague at the time, and a separate fan fiction lawsuit in 1976 led to out-of-court settlements up to $5,000. However, none of this directly involved Howard. More impactful was producer Roger Corman's request for reshoots on April 20, 1975, which cost Howard another $500, nearly exhausting his budget. Still, the film won a small prize at the Atlanta Film Festival on September 10, 1975, fueling Howard's passion for directing. This experience would lead to his first feature film, Grand Theft Auto, 1977. Grand Theft Auto and an Industry Shift. Grand Theft Auto, which Howard directed, co-wrote with his father, Rance Howard, and starred in cost just $600,000 to make and grossed $15 million following its June 16, 1977 release. However, during filming, a car stunt went terribly wrong. Stuntman Paul Bartel suffered serious injuries, including broken bones and internal trauma. Howard, shaken by the incident, feared his directing career might be over before it had truly begun. The resulting lawsuit was quietly settled in 1978. This experience left a lasting impact. Safety would become a top priority on all of Howard's future sets. Personal life and public scrutiny. Howard married his high school sweetheart, Cheryl Alley, on June 7, 1975, in a modest ceremony in Burbank that cost $800. Approximately 300 guests attended, and Henry Winkler served as best man. Although Howard was earning $25,000 per episode at the time, he preferred a simple celebration. They spent their honeymoon quietly in Hawaii. In 1977, tabloid rumors began to surface, including unsubstantiated claims of infidelity. The most damaging story appeared on October 15, 1978, when the National Enquirer falsely accused Howard of cheating. He later described it as deeply humiliating. In a 2025 interview, he shared that for their 50th anniversary, Cheryl gifted him a kissing chair to remind them of the early days of their relationship. Leaving Happy Days. In July 1980, at the height of the show's popularity, with 20 million weekly viewers, Howard made a bold decision. He left Happy Days. ABC had refused his request to begin directing television movies and instead offered him $100,000 per episode to stay for another 3 years. Howard declined. On July 20, 1980, he signed a $1 million deal with NBC, giving him full creative control over future projects. He officially departed Happy Days before the 8th season, which began on September 9, 1980. The public reaction was intense. ABC received over 15,000 letters urging his return. Howard later said the network treated him like an eagle snatching a baby. His departure marked a turning point. Ratings dropped by 30%, and the show was never quite the same. Still, it continued until 1984, ultimately airing 255 episodes, a new era of directing. At just 23, Howard directed Grand Theft Auto, followed by increasingly ambitious projects. 1982, Night Shift earned $21 million, signaling his arrival as a viable director. 1984, Splash cost $11 million and grossed $69.8 million, launching Tom Hanks into stardom. But behind the scenes, tensions ran high. On July 15, 1983, Hanks had a shouting match with crew members over script issues. The film was nearly canceled until Disney released it under their new Touchstone label. 1985. While filming Cocoon, Howard received death threats from a fired extra, Harold Jenkins, who believed the film mocked the elderly. Jenkins sent violent letters on February 12th, prompting Fox to hire $150,000 in 24-hour security. The script was softened and the release delayed to June 21st, but the film still grossed $85 million and won 2 Academy Awards. 1988. Willow, developed from a 1972 idea by George Lucas, was released on May 20th with a $35 million budget. It grossed $137.6 million, but lost money due to marketing expenses and mixed reviews. Lucas and Howard frequently clashed, especially over $5 million in cuts. In June 1987, Howard nearly quit, though later home video sales helped the film break even. 1989. Parenthood was inspired by a difficult flight with his daughter, who became sick mid-journey. Released on August 2nd, the film cost $20 million and made $126 million. However, in May 1989, writer Elena Vasquez sued Howard for plagiarism. He settled for $500,000 in June, nearly derailing the release. Backdraft and Apollo 13, 1991. Backdraft, a drama about firefighters, had a serious on-set incident on July 23, 1990. A fire got out of control, burning Kurt Russell's hand and face. 3 crew members were also injured. OSHA cited the production for violations, but the film ultimately earned $152 million and received an Oscar nomination for visual effects. 1995. Apollo 13, released on June 30th, made $355 million worldwide. It was one of Howard's most demanding productions. Tom Hanks insisted on absolute accuracy, using real NASA transcripts. On October 12, 1994, he demanded script rewrites. By October 15th, production had halted, costing $2 million. Howard nearly quit on October 18th, but NASA officials stepped in to mediate. The film went on to win Oscars for sound and editing in 1996. A Beautiful Mind, 2001. Released on December 21, 2001, A Beautiful Mind told the story of mathematician John Nash and his struggle with schizophrenia. Ron Howard, Behind the Camera and Under Fire, Ransom, 1996. Released on November 8, 1996, Ransom earned over $309 million worldwide. However, the experience was deeply personal for Ron Howard. During production in early 1996, he received disturbing threats that mirrored the movie's plot. On February 14th, anonymous letters threatened his children. The FBI launched an investigation, tapped the family's phones, and reported suspicious vehicles near their home. For safety, the family relocated on March 5th. No arrests were made, but suspects reportedly fled California by April. Howard later described Ransom as his most personal film due to the ordeal. How the Grinch Stole Christmas, 2000. Starring Jim Carrey, The Grinch was released on November 17, 2000, and grossed $345 million. The production was intense. Carrey had to undergo 2.5 hours of makeup daily. On March the 22nd, Carrey reportedly lost his temper, got into a physical altercation with Howard, and filming was suspended for a day. He later apologized and promised to remain professional. The effort paid off when the film won an Academy Award for Best Makeup in 2001. A Beautiful Mind, 2001. Released on December 21, 2001, A Beautiful Mind told the story of mathematician John Nash and his struggle with schizophrenia. It grossed $313 million and won Best Picture and Best Director at the 2002 Academy Awards. Despite its success, production was fraught with tension. Lead actor Russell Crowe had several outbursts, including an incident on June 10th when he threw a phone at a hotel clerk. On April 15th, Howard briefly fired Crowe but rehired him just 2 days later to avoid losses estimated at $500,000 per day. Co-star Jennifer Connelly credited Howard with keeping the production intact. The Da Vinci Code, 2006. The Da Vinci Code, based on Dan Brown's novel, sparked international controversy upon its May 17, 2006 premiere. Religious groups, particularly the Catholic Church, condemned the film for suggesting that Jesus Christ married Mary Magdalene and fathered a child, allegations portrayed as a cover-up by a group called Opus Dei. Protests erupted globally. In India, Christian groups called for a ban. In the Philippines, it was restricted to adult viewers. At the Cannes premiere, a bomb scare prompted heightened security, and critics reportedly laughed during the screening. Opus Dei demanded a disclaimer clarifying the film was fictional, and U.S. Catholic bishops launched a counter-campaign via the website JesusDecoded.com, labeling the film morally offensive. Despite the backlash, the movie grossed $760 million. Howard later admitted the controversy was emotionally exhausting. In Italy, both Howard and Brown nearly faced legal action for filming without proper permits. Ironically, the Vatican's attempts to discourage viewing only fueled public curiosity. Solo, a Star Wars Story, 2018. In June 2017, Ron Howard was brought in to replace fired directors Phil Lord and Chris Miller on Solo, a Star Wars Story. He reshot approximately 70% of the film between late June and mid-October to meet the May 2018 release deadline. This pushed the budget to $275 million. Some insiders claimed Howard diluted the original, more experimental tone in favor of a classic Star Wars style, leading to tensions on set. Actors like Alden Ehrenreich reportedly struggled with the transition, and creative conflicts resulted in lawsuits and fan petitions. Although the film earned $393 million, it fell short of expectations. Lord and Miller ultimately declined director credit, accepting executive producer roles instead. Angels and Demons, 2009. The sequel to The Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, faced its own controversies. Released on May 15, 2009, the film portrayed the Catholic Church clashing with a secretive Illuminati plot involving antimatter. According to Howard, the Vatican blocked filming access to real churches, forcing the crew to build sets, a move he claimed cost the production up to $50 million in losses. Despite this, the Vatican later called the film harmless. Angels and Demons grossed $485 million, and actor Tom Hanks said the film was meant to provoke thought, not anger. The Good Lie, 2014. In 2015, Imagine Entertainment faced legal trouble over The Good Lie, a drama about Sudanese refugees starring Reese Witherspoon. On February 19, 54 Sudanese refugees filed a 101-page lawsuit in Atlanta, claiming they were paid only $55,000 for providing traumatic life stories despite promises of ongoing support. Although Howard wasn't personally named, the backlash was severe. The lawsuit settled in 2017, but the film's reputation suffered. It made just $3.2 million domestically. Rush, 2013. Howard's Formula One biopic Rush, released on September 27, 2013, dramatized the rivalry between James Hunt and Niki Lauda. During filming on August 1st, a stunt driver named David Crowder was injured when a suspension failed during a fiery crash recreation. The accident eerily mirrored Lauda's real-life crash. Crowder later sued, and the case was settled in 2014. Tragedy struck again just 18 days after the film's release, when Sean Edwards, the son of the stunt coordinator, died in a car crash. Howard was subpoenaed and questioned about possible budget cuts affecting safety. Rush earned $90 million, but faced criticism for glorifying real-life danger, especially since actual footage of Lauda's injuries was used. The Dilemma, 2011. Released on January 14, 2011, The Dilemma stirred controversy due to a joke in which Vince Vaughn's character referred to electric cars as gay in a derogatory non-sexual context. After backlash from GLAAD and Ellen DeGeneres, Universal removed the line from trailers on October 30, 2010, but Howard kept it in the film. He defended the decision, citing character realism and artistic integrity. Despite the controversy, the film earned $69.7 million. Hillbilly Elegy, 2020. Howard directed Hillbilly Elegy, which debuted on Netflix on November 24, 2020. The film, based on J.D. Vance's memoir, featured Amy Adams and Glenn Close, whose performance earned both an Oscar nomination and a Razzie. The movie was polarizing, scoring only 25% on Rotten Tomatoes, though audiences rated it at 82%. In August 2025, Howard expressed surprise that Vance, who had once criticized Donald Trump, became his running mate in the 2024 presidential election. Howard admitted to sending Vance a cool, disappointed text after the announcement. He called the film a mixed bag in retrospect, praising audience response while acknowledging critical backlash. Eden 2025. Howard's film Eden premiered at the Toronto International Film Festival on September 7, 2025. Originally titled Origin of the Species, the movie was inspired by a real 1920s murder mystery from the Galapagos Islands. It starred Jude Law, Ana de Armas, Vanessa Kirby, Daniel Bruhl, and Sydney Sweeney. Filming began on November 27, 2023, in Queensland and the Galapagos, wrapping on February 14, 2024. The budget dropped from $55 million to $35 million due to Australian tax incentives. A shocking birth-death sequence based on real events drew attention. Critics gave it a 68% on Rotten Tomatoes, describing it as dark, sexy, and absurd. Howard called the film a cautionary tale about isolation. Television return and Emmy nomination, 2025. In 2025, Howard made a rare return to acting on television in The Studio, a satirical comedy led by Seth Rogen. In Episode 3, which aired March 14th, Howard played a fictional version of himself and engaged in a physical altercation with Rogen's character. The scene was improvised and resulted in Howard sustaining a real rib injury in January 2025. He earned his first Emmy nomination for acting, marking his 14th career nomination overall. In a September 6th interview with People, Howard said he avoided getting his hopes up due to a past experience with The Paper, 1995, which underperformed after he ignored a psychic's advice. He humorously referred to his 195 TV years without an acting award.